Alright guys, we're about to do the unboxing. I don't have the best camera equipment, but we are about to open the Worksharp Professional Precision Adjust. Alright, I don't have a lot of desk space. Alright, inside we have inner box. We'll open that in a second. And here we've got manual, some paperwork, stickers, which is always cool. Notice we have the base, which is a lot sturdier. It's got some rubber grips and also holes, I guess, if you want to pin that down. It's got a metal base right there, I guess, for maybe for bearing down on. And then we have the actual body itself, all aluminum. One thing I'm excited about is you don't have to take out the holder every time to flip it. I believe you can rotate it with it inside. Look at that nice metal construction at the base to attach, metal arms, and notchless adjustments so you can go to a smooth way. Goes from 15 all the way to 30. Of course, that is dependent on the blade length and, you know, how far you're coming out and the size of the abrasive. Let's put those down. Alright guys, the little accessory tray, component box it says. Alright. New arm. This one, it looks like a ceramic little rod, maybe for serrations to hone with. What is awesome though, if you guys see the abrasives down here, you got 220 or 320, 400, 800, and I'm sorry, 600, 800 grit. What grit means is the size of the particles you're sharpening with. So the lower the grit, the larger the particles, so the rougher it is. So you usually generally want to start with the rougher grit to profile or shape the blade, and then you'll go higher grits to polish it off, you know, make it a little more polished, a little bit more even, or not even, but to kind of work that edge a little finer. And you also have, they call it a hone, but it looks like a little ceramic to kind of further polish the edge after the 800. And a leather strap within, preloaded with green compound. Now, what it really excited me is, if you guys remember the first Precision Adjust, if this was the arm holder, the abrasives only came out to here. So when you're sharpening at, let's say, the heel of a knife, the edge of your holder would reach further than the actual abrasive, so you may not be able to hit some angles that are real close to the edges of the blade. So same way, lots of throw. You see the movement from the top to bottom. You get a lot more room to sharpen, and these are 6 by 1 inches. That is a huge improvement with the other ones. And another thing I'm super excited about, I don't know if anyone's talked about this, is that, what does that mean? Well, it's easy to take off your abrasives and switch, but think of the future upgrades and releases for different abrasives and attachments you can have with this system. It's going to be so upgradable. I mean, maybe even third-party people can make it. I mean, 800 grit and a ceramic's not going to get you the mirror polished edge, which I'm not the biggest fan of. They're pretty, I like sharp, but this will definitely get you sharp. But think of the future attachments they have for different ceramics, different diamond hones, even CBN maybe if they make that, more leather straps, different options. You know, it's finer grits, lower grits maybe. You know how they came out with the upgrade kit for the original Worksharp Precision? Well, this just makes it easier because all you're gonna need is these plates, and it's just magnetically taps on like that. Awesome. Then we have the holder. This one is lined with rubber inside to keep your edges safe. And you get a lot more room. Before with the precision adjust, the first one you can maybe get like 1/4 of an inch in, if that. This one you have a lot more room, and this one you can tighten above it. And this is all aluminum, all steel. I'm not sure about the metal, but it's metal. It's not plastic, which is another huge improvement. I think this is some sort of a brace. I'll have to check. And you do have it looks like an angle cube. We'll have to see how that works. See that adjust? So zero it out, and then you can see it looks like it's quarter adjustments. If you notice, it goes from like 0.25, 0.5, 0.75, which is still awesome to kind of get thrown in with that, and pretty easy to work with. And then you have the small blade table for when you have like your pen knives, your lockbacks, your your new Jack Wolf knives. You can attach this on there, and you can have a lot smaller blades to be going on there. So let's get all this attached and put together. All right, guys, let's get this put together. We've got the base right here, and we've got the main body. You just slide it down like that, and it fits right in. These two nuts come in the main part of the box along with the rest of the larger pieces. And just screw that side. Screw it in like that, and it's secure. Then for the arm, if you guys can see right there, just screw that in. It's a little tight to move it up and down, so you're not going to do it super fast. It does take some turning, but you got a lot of adjustment to do. And then, if you're not using it, you just hold it up like that. That's kind of nice. So you just, if this is the arm, you flip it up and lay it in just like that, and it stays. Get it out your way. Now we have the holder. And there's a hole that goes in the middle. Alright, and the turn. And other than my table wobbling, the whole system is very stable. So to rotate, push this down, and it'll lock into place. And to rotate again to the other side, do that. There it is. All right, guys, now that we have that, let's see how we mount or clamp in a knife. You just press down on the teeth. Try to get, this is a Tenacious, this is a 8CR MOV knife. The weird thing with the heels, I actually like to come down and up with these, so I'm gonna try to do that with this one. So it's a little weird. I believe this was at 18 degrees. So you're gonna turn this until it's tight. And that's securely in there. Now, the great move, I know you guys have seen the 3D printed stands to keep it from wobbling. This little piece, you slide this under here. It actually supports the stone holder. That way there's no up and down movement, or if you're pressing, this piece isn't gonna move. All right, let's throw in the 220. Now they're all labeled right here. Another thing I would also recommend is once you guys get it on the bag magnetic part, go ahead and write what abrasive it is, because that might wear out, who knows. But that way you have a point of reference for the front and the back. Simply slide it in. Now you notice these black grommets here, and there's also one right here on this one. This will actually tell the stone where to stop. So if you need this, what you do is, if you notice how far it goes down, the end of it, I can actually pull that down a little bit, or even move this piece up to limit how far down your stone goes. And then for this one, do the same. You move it up and down. That way the edge doesn't go up. Trust me, if your abrasive goes any higher than the bevel, which is the secondary bevel is right here, it will cause scratches on this part, okay? So these are important. They're not, now if you really smash it, it's gonna move them, because they're only thing keeping them in is friction. But that's, that way it'll kind of allow you to learn how to do, you know, very light pressure, very light movements. You don't wanna try to use all your strength when you're doing this. So again, when you're not using it, slide it up like that, get it out the way. Sharpie is your friend. It'd be nice if they added a Sharpie to the kit, because what you want to do is you want to just Sharpie the bevel. This way, when you find the angle that you're wanting to sharpen to an existing angle, you can, you see when it gets removed. I'm actually gonna flip this around because it only rotates one way. So apparently, you kind of want to base how you orient your blade with how you're rotating, because it doesn't rotate this way. Oh, and then you gotta take that out. So remember that. So it goes like that, if that makes sense. You have to take this out to rotate. So that's a tip. I just learned that. This is the first time I'm using it, guys. Okay. Alright guys, quick and dirty first start. This one has been profiled before. I think roughly 18 degrees. I'm going to just play with the angles to see where it hits. You can run diamonds dry. You can use water. A good tip is a water bowl with a drop or two of dish soap. That'll actually keep all the debris, the diamond, or the steel to kind of collect and easier to wash away. I also use lapping fluid if you want. You can use oil. I usually prefer to use this on my stones whenever I'm professionally sharpening. Just slide a little bit there. Like I said before, since the abrasive wasn't as far along the holder as the you couldn't really hit the very heel, if you guys know what I'm talking about. Yeah, this is making quick work. Yeah, do you see the Sharpie gets removed over the whole bevel? That means I'm at an angle. I didn't really use the let's see what the angle cube says. So let's see here. It looks like what you do is you sit it down on your work surface, zero it there. And right now it says 19 degrees. So roughly 18 degrees is where I thought I sharpened this guy at. So now we know. There shouldn't be any more adjusting of this if you consistently use it, because all the abrasive are the same thickness. But if for any reason your abrasives are thicker or thinner, you will have to adjust this to accommodate for the thickness, if that makes sense. But with all the provided abrasives that Worksharp sent, you shouldn't have to do any adjusting other than if you actually move the knife and the clamp, or you know, you put in a different knife if you're working on the same one. So you can do scrubbing motions. I prefer to do this because it's easier to get rid of my scratches later, because as you're going up like this, it actually creates a scratch pattern in one way that's all uniform. Let's do the other side. I'll do the same thing here. Like I said, I've already set my guides to The up and down motion is pretty fluid. It's a little stiffer than I'm used to up here because I'm using a different system. Roughing motions like that can help with profiling. I'm using the 220 grit stone. Now what I want to check is for burr. Whenever you're sharpening, as you flatten and sharpen one side, the metal will actually, if you actually hit the edge, it'll actually start going over to the other side, and you can actually feel that burr. So then you want to do the other side and make that burr. So you're basically trying to sharpen until you hit that edge. And if you actually feel with your finger, you can actually see and feel the burr. So I'm actually apex now, so all I'm going to do is just light pressure. Do not bear down when you're doing this. This is the tedious part, it's just going back and forth. The burr is minimized and it is pretty sharp. Let's go ahead and move up to the 220. Okay, just a tip. There's an actual little cutout right here in the middle that makes it easier to grab the abrasive. So, because I was having some problems with it. Now we're going to the 320. You're going to keep doing this until you've taken away the 220 grit scratches. What I mean by removing them is once you start going up in grits or higher or finer grits, the scratch pattern, because the rougher the grits are, the larger the scratches you're going to have on the secondary bevel. As you progress, you'll start to polish those out, and they'll actually get smaller and smaller and smaller. So you can, if you get good overhead light or even a headlamp or a flashlight, you can see the scratch patterns getting smaller as you go. And actually with the light I can see the scratches getting smaller and smaller. Switch it out from the 320. Now we are at 400. Like I said, I like to use lapping fluid, water, dish soap and water's fine, oil if you want it. Water and soap, one or two drops of dish soap is probably going to be the cleanest or the easiest to clean up. Just try it and just know what you're using. You don't have to use a lot. Just covering your abrasive surface, and it'll actually help clean off the diamond particles once you're ready to clean it. So we're at 400 grit. Another tip I have for you is if you are planning on taking the knife off and putting it back on during the same sharpening session, just draw a line where you clamped it. So when you if you have to reclamp it during the same session, you can put it back on there again. finish up with the 400 and go to the next one. Just also wanted to add, I do flip often because it makes sure I take off steel on both sides evenly. It's more time consuming, but you'll get a better consistent result, and you're not gonna have bevels. Bevels meaning the part where you cut with. Like one side won't be huge versus the other one may be a little, and it's gonna look very uneven. So if you flip often and work the same amount as far as removing steel, they're gonna look a lot. Now you can also, I like to do this, the way you scrub does impact scratch pattern. I do it this way because it keeps it consistent. And then I always finish up with heel to tip into the edge strokes, meaning I'm going up or into the edge, heel to tip, into the edge. That way it'll weaken off any burr instead of snapping it. The process of sharpening is you wanna make both sides meet at the finest point possible at the cutting part. And then you wanna make that burr, which is just excess steel that's been driven up at that part. Well, that burr, if you were to violently break it off, your final edge is gonna be very ragged and not sharp. The smoother and softer and easier you take that burr off, the more refined your edge is gonna be, your final cutting edge to actually do your cutting tasks. So whenever you're doing these deburring strokes, which is heel to tip, light strokes, because you wanna make sure you take that burr off or weaken it as softly and as gently as possible. When I first started, I would put a lot of pressure into these. Let the diamond and the abrasives do the work. Don't put a lot of downward pressure. Just let the weight of your abrasives, your stones, whatever, do the work for you. These diamonds are harder in the Rockwell scale than the steel that you're cutting. The softer the steel, the more you'll take off. All right, guys, I feel like I'm done with the 400. Again, you see these little notches in the middle. Pull it off just like that. Now there's two more stones in the set. There's the 600 and the 800. And you see how much smoother and finer that looks. Because the higher grit you go, the more fine the diamond particles are to refine the edge. And also notice with a finer grit, I have to usually put a lot less liquid on there because there's less surface area to cover. And it's starting to polish up, not like a mirror, because 600 grit's not going to give you a reflective surface, but you'll start to see those scratch patterns start to disappear. Usually the longest part of sharpening is when you do a factory edge and you have to actually profile, because when you get a knife from the factory for whatever maker, they're grinding that on a belt freehand. This is a locked clamp, so your angle's always fixed when you're sharpening, so you're gonna have to do some adjustments with your 220 grit or your finest grit stone. You're gonna do most of the work with that. That's to shape the edge. Once it's evened, that's the hardest part. You just follow that same area with your higher grit stones to polish that edge down until you get the edge that you want. But the most important parts of sharpening is first profiling, taking your time, no pressure, and then deburring, which is taking off that excess steel at the very apex, which is where the edge is. Because the cleaner you break that off, the sharper and more refined your final edge is going to be. Like I said, just the weight of the stone. And I'll continue to do this until then, and I'll show you guys the next step. right, now I'm going to stop at 600, so I'm doing deburring strokes, which is, like I said, you go from the heel of your knife into the edge to the tip. This is trying to weaken that burr, and you're flipping it from this side to the other as you're flipping. The weaker you can make that burr, the cleaner you can break it off, the sharper your final edge will be. Flipping often to flip that burr. No pressure. Just let the weight do the work. It's actually very sharp. Alright guys, I'm done with the 600. Let's go over to the 800. I figured I'd go ahead and use all the stones and abrasives while I'm here, so 800's gone. We are at the last one. If you compare that to the 600, it's even more fine. And you have these two notches right here. 1, 2, where it matches with the hole, so it's very easy to find the correct area to clamp. So we are at 800 now. Continue this, and then the next one will be the ceramic stone. Now I'm just finishing up with the 800, light into the edge strokes. Another tip is when you're rotating and you push down, give some pressure into the stone holder. That way it doesn't pop out, okay? If you kind of pull out and do that, you can actually pull the holder out itself. This is my method of sharpening. You can kind of find a technique that works for you, but mine's worked with me so far. And when I'm doing into the edge, not only do I just let the weight of the stone do it, I actually take some off. Take the weight off by kind of lifting just a tad. You'll get a feel for it once you start sharpening if you haven't used these already or don't have a technique that you're already using yourself. And you see the steel that's coming off? Well, you can't really, it's on there. And then what I do is just, I usually have shop rags and alcohol, 91% rubbing alcohol. So I've got that off. Then you can see all the steel particles, or at least the swarf you call it, on there. Now before you change different types of abrasive or even between stones, you want to just get some rubbing alcohol and just wipe that secondary bevel. Especially if you're going to like leather strops, because you don't want the steel and different abrasives to get onto your leather and ruin it prematurely. Alright, now we've got the ceramic. I'm not sure what grit this is, it doesn't say, but it is usually finer than most of your diamonds, not all of them, but most, depending on what kind of diamond abrasive you're using. But since we're working with the highest at 800, this should be pretty fine. Now with ceramic, I usually just do light into the edge strokes. So I am just further weakening that burr. That's all I'm doing at this point, because I don't have any more diamond abrasives to remove a lot of steel. So I'm just weakening and polishing that. that burr because I want the sharpest edge I can physically get with the tools I have. And you can actually see that dark stuff, that's steel coming off the knife. See, even with the weight of just the stone and not you pressing down or bearing down, you're still doing work. Just feeling if I have it, because the higher grits you go, the smaller your physical burr is. At first, with the lower grits, you can kind of see it with good lighting, but as you go higher in grit, the harder it is to see it, but you can still feel it if you get a feel for it. After this last stroke, I'm gonna go to the leather. Before we do that, get your rag, your microfiber cloth, whatever, and clean off that edge. Now we're going to their leather strop. It's got green polishing compound. Now, I've made this mistake before. It snaps on. If you go up into the heel, you will cut that leather with the edge. So what you do is now I'm going to go from tip to heel away from the edge. See? Again, just the weight of the stone or the abrasive. Lay it on there and a couple times, flip. Not only are you further polishing, but you're further, the leather's gonna weaken that burr. And take it off of the edge so you have a final sharp edge. And I still, my way of doing it is I still flip often. You can actually see it darken right there. That's actually steel that's been rubbed off onto the green compound. Now, I would assume Worksharp will have new attachments. It should be a great selling point because it is so easy to now take off and on your different plates and abrasives and attachments to it. Heck, even the rod, if they wanted maybe like a convex rod or a stick to do serrations or recurves, narrow stones. Honestly, with the way they've set this up, with the build quality, the possibilities are really endless. It's not quite as portable as the first one, but you get a lot more structure with this build and with the materials, and you can still take it down and pack it away in your box, or even in a case that you might make. Alright, we'll do one more on each side. This knife has been in my room, cutting open packages, straps, whatever I get at home. I haven't cleaned it or sharpened it in I don't know how long. So once you're done, take that off and you can see the discoloration where all the steel is now stuck in the leather and compound. They put a generous amount of compound on there, but you don't want to overstrop. All right, and we'll see how that feels afterwards. Now we'll take this off. You can actually, I like to usually do it this way. So we'll loosen this. Now you see the lighting's kind of harsh. And don't mind all the scuffs. This is an old knife, but the bevel is new. Nice sharp 800 grit. Now with the current kit, the disc combos, you're not gonna get a mirror edge, but it's damn sharp. We'll see how it cuts. Alright guys, quick little 800 grit diamond finish edge off of the new Worksharp Professional. Very aggressive edge. This will be awesome working edge, and the longer you take and the finer you make those adjustments, the sharper your edges are going to be. There you go. Alright guys, to recap, awesome build. Everything attaches. I mean, you can simply just put it all together. You've got infinite adjustments without clicks, so you can fine tune what level of angle you want to do. Solid adjustment. And if you need extra support, you have this bracket that you just slide under the stone holder. A lot more universal stone holder itself. You got a little stand. The abrasive holder is amazing. 6x1 abrasive stones. They're a little thinner than some of them, but you can easily reattach it, and you got a lot of possibilities for an upgrade in the future. You also have the option to, if you want to permanently mount this somewhere, you have 4 mounting holes. And if you need more room, if you pull this handle back here up, this will give you more clearance for larger knives. And then if you do smaller knives that you need a better support and you need it further out, you have this guy. So overall, I think for the price and all the stuff you get to start off with, and if future upgrades become available, this is honestly a home run. I'm super stoked with this. It's just going to be a nice product, especially even if you're just starting sharpening. The basics are easy to get. It'll still accommodate intermediate to higher end sharpeners that may want to stay with this system. And if future upgrades do come out, I think this is a great deal. So if you guys have any questions, let me know. And thank you, River's Edge Cutlery. And thank you, Mr. Jason Beatty, for letting me do this.